Good evening, everyone. Welcome into the Voice of College Football here at Mark Rogers TV, right here on our main channel. I've basically been doing work all day for all the other channels, but back here on the main channel, the mothership of sorts. And it's great to see everybody. My apologies when mom calls right before showtime. Got to find out how mom's doing and, of course, have that conversation. So, that's where we are, and we have been recording all day and live streams as well today at the Voice of College Football, so hopefully you've had a chance to dig on in. I got to say that as we have some people filtering in, and I'll get to your comments in just a second, that I have people all the time that aren't college football fans that I know, or people that I come across that find out what I'm doing. They'll say all the time, what do you do when it's not college football season? What do you talk about? And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's almost more to talk about when it's not college football season, especially with this crazy transfer portal and with recruiting and spring practice and schedules and predictions and coaches and coordinators getting hired and fired. And with everything that goes on, there seems to be more to talk about during the offseason than in season. But I got to say, today, as I was didn't really have a chance to focus, think about, ponder what would be a great topic tonight, I've been recording pretty much since about 11 this morning, up until just a few minutes ago, with Lon Phillip Sullivan of LSU Odyssey. That's thus the LSU helmet there. So I didn't really take the opportunity to figure out what our topic was going to be tonight. So during the course of my conversation with my mom for 10 or 15 minutes prior to the show, I'm searching all sorts of sites, and I'm leafing through my Athlons and Lindy's magazines, thinking that something's going to pop into my head to be a good starting point, jumping off point topic, with us just less than 10 weeks away from college football, and just about, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks away from SEC media days. It's actually all the conferences have their media days. SEC media days just seems to come out of my mouth for a couple different reasons. Number one, it is the media days of all media days. The other ones just pale in comparison. It's not even close to the way the SEC puts on an extravaganza and television show of SEC media days. Number two, because it's typically the first one, they're usually a week ahead of everybody else. It's the most extensive in terms of the number of days. They go the entire week. And then number three, it was the one that I covered for 7 years. So the SEC media days come to mind. And we are on the precipice of the 2021 season. Like, we are there. That said, could I really come up with a topic? Has there been anything from a national perspective going on, aside from everything we've discussed in the last couple of weeks concerning the college football playoff? No, not really. There's a lot going on, and I'm covering it every day with our contributors all over the place and filling up videos on all these team channels. So please, if you're a Nebraska fan, check out the Nebraska channel. Michigan fan, Michigan channel. So whomever you root for, please go to those specific team channels, because basically everything that I used to dump on this channel is on all those other channels. So there's not a whole lot of content on this channel because I want to keep it clear, and I'm really bothered by this LSU helmet being by itself up here. That's not sitting too well with me right now. So we're going to give it a theme of the 2003 BCS championship game with Oklahoma and LSU, and also give it a feel for the 1986-87 Orange Bowl and home series between Miami and Oklahoma, and also give it a feel for the LSU Miami season opening game from a couple of years ago when Joe Burrow and company torched Miami. And also, of course, the game that LSU and Miami played before that, the time before that, was a real shellacking at the Peach Bowl. That almost marks Miami's downfall. What was that? The 2004, 2005 Peach Bowl? 40-3. Quite the embarrassment. All right, so welcome in, everyone. It's great to see everyone, and we'll see who's got what for me. And the phone lines are open at 860-499-3332. And before we get to that, of course, you know what's coming. You know what's coming. It is the obligatory Amazon pitch. Look at the ticker down at the bottom of the screen. Shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section below. There it is. In the description section of all the videos, you can shop Amazon by grabbing that link. Same shopping experience. Man, listen to George. If anybody can tell it better than I can, it's George, who lets everybody know, hey, why not just use the Amazon link? All right. So good to see everyone. And again, let's dive into the comments, and maybe somebody's going to have something for me that's going to spark us tonight. Sometimes these best shows come from nothing. They come and rise up from the ashes. So George is suggesting that we make fun of, ironically, Georgia. This could be the Make Fun of Georgia show. The Make Fun of Georgia show. Apocalypse says, looks like those said Burger King bags don't get all the recruits. JTT is not headed south. So I don't know what Apocalypse has seen or heard or read. If that kid commits to Ohio State, it's game over for everyone. The pass rush is going to be legendary with Sawyer and JTT on each end, not to mention the guys they already have. Most likely, with the 5 stars, Zach Harrison being the latest along the defensive front for the Buckeyes. Don't always turn out to be superstars. Phil in Florida State. Florida State big on the silent commit this recruiting period. Silent commits do exist. Omar Graham was an FSU silent commit for 3 months while other schools, including Miami, were recruiting him. I don't remember a player who was rated something like 80th at his position ever getting as much pub as Omar Graham has. Good to see Cheryl. Good to see David. Good to see D-Rock Irish. Between you three keep me going, among others. I had Cheryl and Ronan chime in during an Oklahoma show today. I know that they didn't care much to hear about Oklahoma football, but they were there to support the channel, support me. So, Cheryl, thank you so much for that. And Ronan as well. Thank you, David. Mom's doing fine. Mom is doing fine. Mom is 91 and doing well. There it is, D-Rock. Looks like David's got a scouting report for us. 6'4" wide receiver from East St. Louis, as fast as Tim Brown, if not faster. Kick returns, punt returns. He was one of my favorites, but he suffered an ACL. Now medical technology was not as good as then. 904 Hurricane. 904 Hurricane joined us on our Oklahoma show today. Man, Buckeye fans must be, they must have come across something. There must be something out there about JTT and Ohio State, because Ohio State fans are getting excited, and there must be something out there. Molo Al, if I can spell his name. Oh. Got it. That was 7 hours ago that it was reported by Cleveland.com that JTT has canceled his official visit to Alabama. Aha. Okay. I get it. D-Rock Irish, good to see you. Lewis. Thank you so much, Lewis, for the well wishes. Navy Thomas alerted me earlier today that the Nebraska AD is gone and a new AD is in play. The best preseason college football magazine. The Wholesome One has been telling me in recent weeks that I should produce a college football preseason magazine. When we get the staff together, we'll work on that. I would love to put together a preseason college football publication, but that's all I would be doing. Come on, Phil. Phil. I know that your football program is not in the hunt, not in the discussion for these type of athletes typically. But yeah, this is JT Tui Moloau. He is rated by some as the best player in the country for 2022. 2021. He's going to play this fall. Do I think that Herm Edwards will get fired, excuse me, at Arizona State? Based on what I know of these allegations, and I still really need to read into these, I've not taken the time to do it. I don't know when that's going to happen. But basically, we're talking about recruiting violations and COVID violations, and there seem to be no excuses there whatsoever. That is not something that a head coach can dodge and claim ignorance in any such way. So I would think that he would get fired for that. That is blatantly breaking rules. I would think so. Cole Converse is telling us that Iowa State's going to be favored against Iowa for the first time since 2001. They will be. Can't wait for that game. Hurricane Logan on the line. Michael's here. Says Herm's got to go. And again, I apologize for not being on top of that story. Just have focused on other things and the college football universe in general. And after the college football playoff 12-team proposal, Arizona State's situation has obviously been at the forefront. But I'm covering the beat here. We are covering the beat with all these teams. Cole is asking if Kansas is not the worst team in the Power 5 in 2021. Who is? Well, Kansas is the worst team, but if they somehow are able to win some football games and prove not to be the worst, who would be the worst? Rutgers is no longer the worst, it would not appear. Greg Schiano's got something going there. Oregon State has actually got a pulse as well. And Vanderbilt, I can't imagine that even Vandy's the worst in the Power 5 if it's not Kansas. Syracuse might be in the running this year. Duke might be in the running this year. But I would say if it's not Kansas, I'm going to say that it's most likely Is it Syracuse? Dino Babers. How does he have a job? Syracuse, it's been shown here in the last 15 years, even though it's going to be difficult for anyone to elevate the Syracuse football program to what it was under Paul Pasqualoni, Don McPherson, and of course Donovan McNabb at quarterback. Was the last time they had a really good team that went to a New Year's Six type bowl game, a BCS bowl game in what, 01? 99? McNabb was drafted in 90. McNabb was drafted in 99. So in 98, Syracuse went to an Orange Bowl. But Doug Marrone and company showed that you could go 7-5 at Syracuse pretty consistently. And Dino Babers, aside from the one smoke and mirrors year of 2018 with 10 wins, and that was not a good football team. They were a decent football team because you can't win 10 games in the ACC, even the ACC, without being decent. But when they played anyone that year, they got killed. So I got to think Dino Babers is on life support. And I did produce a video on the coaching hot seats, and I had Dino Babers featured. Caden Salter. I posted a video just, we were discussing Caden Salter. Yes, that was here. Yes, we talked some Tennessee football today, so that's going to be posted here, here soon. So Caden Salter, he was dismissed from the program, and there was another situation connected to that. So my thoughts on any situation involving a student athlete who gets into a situation in which he's dealing drugs, taking drugs, harmful drugs, that got to straighten out his life first. So that seems to be the way to go there. Dismiss him from the football program, get him as much help and support as possible. Keep him enrolled at the school if that's what he wants. Maybe put his scholarship on some type of suspension and give him the opportunity to come back at some point. But that's certainly a situation in which football becomes secondary. Manny, again, as I stated a couple minutes ago, I would think that Herman Edwards is done. And I'm really surprised by this. I got to say, people ask me this all the time. Were you surprised by this? Were you surprised by that? Were you shocked by that? And my typical answer is no, not surprised. Things just, when you've watched sports for as long as I have and covered it, it just doesn't seem to shock me who gets involved with what. That I really, not knowing these people personally, I cannot vouch for anyone. Take the most upstanding person in sports, whoever that is, Tim Tebow. We'll start with Tim Tebow. I would be slightly surprised if I found out something about Tim Tebow that we would not expect. But that said, would it shock me? Really, truly surprise me? No, because I don't know Tim Tebow. So, Herm Edwards, did it surprise me? Yeah, he would not be the first person. He would not be the 10th person. He would not have been, I would have put him on a short list at the other end of the spectrum to be one of the last people not just because of his supposed integrity, but also because of his supposed wisdom. Because it's one thing to do what's right for the sake of doing what's right, because it's going to help people and it's the right thing to do. There's another part in that where most people, unfortunately, maybe this is not my best way of highlighting human character, but the way I look at it is that most people do what's right for their own good. Most people do what's right because they don't want to get caught. If we didn't have any rules or laws in this society, we would have people running amok all over the place. They wouldn't be doing what's right because it's the right thing. They wouldn't be treating people properly and with love and respect because they would no longer have any rules to keep order. But yes, that has been something that I've been slightly surprised at, that Herm Edwards would not be the person, even though I don't think what he did or what he allowed is that horrific. Certainly nothing close to what we've experienced at places like LSU and Penn State. Nothing close to that. Just, again, violating the competitive aspect of it, violating fairness, basically cheating. You're cheating. You're taking an unfair advantage over your competition. That's cheating. So Herm Edwards, based on what I know of the situation, is cheating. And then in addition to that, depending on what your perspective is on COVID and the pandemic and how much was legit and how dangerous the situation was, he also put people into harm's way if, again, you believe that there should have been certain measures, as there were, in place for the pandemic, then he also violated those and put people in jeopardy that way. I'm not so much concerned about that part of it. Good old Mikey. Hey, how good do you think Notre Dame will be this year? They lose a lot along the offense, yes, but all of their harder games are at home, so not sure how I feel on them right now. Let's look at Notre Dame's schedule. Jack Cohn will be the starting quarterback, at least to start the season. A lot of people that follow Notre Dame football are excited about Tyler Buchanan and his potential to take over sometime in mid-season, but I think we're shortchanging Jack Cohn's ability. Your best player on defense has gone to the NFL. Your next best player on defense, Hamilton is back, ready to roll, right? Offensive line has been one of the best in college football. Kyron Williams is back. Let's look at this schedule. Maybe I should just tear apart schedules over the next few weeks and predict games and go game by game. All right, Notre Dame at Florida State. That's about an 85% certainty for a win. Toledo at home, about a 98% certainty of a win. Purdue at home for Notre Dame in week 3. That's about an 80-some% certainty of a win. 3-0 before taking on Wisconsin at Soldier Field. Great game. Wisconsin and Notre Dame would be one of the 5 games that I would most want to see this season of a non-conference variety. That unless one or both of them are undefeated or maybe lose one tough game, it's not going to affect the national championship race, but I just think it's an amazing setting, game, all of that put together. I just love Notre Dame playing the Big Ten, playing the better teams in the Big Ten. So I will give Notre Dame about a slightly better than average 50-50 shot of winning over Wisconsin, but they've got to come home and play Cincinnati the next week. Back-to-back Wisconsin, Cincinnati. So the odds of winning both those games probably much lower than 50-50, much like 30%. At Virginia Tech could be tricky, but Virginia Tech's down and Notre Dame substantially better. USC after a bye week, that game's at home. They should win, but North Carolina back at Notre Dame after the Irish won the game last year in Chapel Hill. So between USC, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, and North Carolina, you would think Notre Dame's going to lose at least one of those four, maybe two. Navy, Virginia on the road, Georgia Tech, and then they finish up with Stanford on the road. So they should be in the clear. They've got four difficult games. Notre Dame probably goes 10-2. H-Man, good to see you. How are you? Yes, thank you, Adam. I was behind on that. That's the one drawback. I was sitting here from about 11 a.m. on taping Michigan, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. We did an Oklahoma live stream for about 90 minutes. And so JTT still has a visit to Oregon. So now we're down to Oregon, Washington, Ohio State, and USC is lurking, right? Big Bubba Blue says that he believes that Herm's going to be off the hook, and Arizona State's going to give the excuse of him not knowing. I'm really going to have to look into this. And you know, when we went through the other night the top 10 arguments in the history of college football, I thought this is a good video series. But then again, there are other good video series that I think that I launched that don't really work out too well. Don't get the feedback. So Heisman snubs. I probably should have done those earlier, but Heisman snubs and the top 10 arguments in college football that we ran down the other night, I may dive into some of those. Yes, Vandy's going to be bad. Mr. HD tells us that Miami is 16-10 all-time at Doak Campbell Stadium. We may rent our stadium, but we own yours. It should be 17-10. Should be. It is surprising, David, what Rutgers is doing with Greg Schiano. Right now, Rutgers, and this is not going to stay this way, it's not going to hold, but Rutgers is, I believe, 12th in the country in recruiting. Their 22 class is 12th in the nation. 7 4-stars. Greg Schiano can get it done. I did a Big Ten coaches rankings list last year, and many people, when I ranked Greg Schiano ahead of current Big Ten coaches, criticized me, but the man can coach. I know Tennessee didn't want him, but the man can coach. McNabb and Syracuse did thump Michigan in 1998. Adam wants a 12-team playoff with 11 regular season games. Everyone plays on conference championship weekend like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 did this past year. I like that. Do I like that? I liked an element of that. So, of course, because the Big Ten and the Pac-12 seasons were squeezed into that small time frame, they took advantage of conference championship weekend to play other games or have other games scheduled at least. And I liked that because it had this wild card feel, because the Big Ten at least was going to seed the teams on championship weekend and not only just have one in the East and one in the West play each other, but everybody else. And it just created a situation where it's intriguing when you don't know who's going to play whom the last week of the season, and you fall in line with everybody playing their comparable seed in the other division. So you create other really good matchups. Now, you could run into a situation where two teams that already played, and so Penn State and Minnesota are going to play for a second time, but is that a bad thing? But see, I don't know if Adam is going for an 11-game regular season that includes the conference championship weekend. Or maybe that's the 12th game for everyone. So everybody plays 12 games, including the teams that make the conference championship game. This is a good point by Jason. Syracuse should have grabbed Lance Leipold when they had the chance. Now, I really don't know who can bring them success. Leipold did a remarkable job at Buffalo. He went to Kansas. He probably would have rather gone to Syracuse. And I, at one time, thought that Dino Babers might be a decent hire and would be able to win on occasion at Syracuse. It's always going to be difficult to maintain winning there because you just can't draw the talent from anywhere. You know, I would think that Syracuse goes to New Jersey quite a bit, Pennsylvania, of course. But that's a good call. That's a good call, Jason. Florida State win projection this year. Mark says more than 6 wins is going to be tough to come by. And Mike Norvell is going to have a new nickname, the Rainmaker. Florida State basically has 5 near automatic losses. Near automatic losses. If they can win one of those games, that would be successful. That would be successful if they could do that. And I got a couple calls coming in. I apologize if anybody's been on hold for too long. Let's get to it. Right here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Nate the Great. How are you doing, sir?
Nate the Great. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good.
It's good to hear from you. What's going on?
I just want to talk about, I want to talk about Bill Moose retirement or step down for Nebraska. Do you have any candidates in mind that who will replace him, like candidates like for athletic director? Or
I gotta say, Nate, that I'm not really up on current athletic directors across the country because I just focus on football, and they're of course dealing with all sports. But I can tell you who I would go after in terms of who would have a certain type of resume that would interest me if I was Nebraska.
Right.
I would gravitate toward somebody who had showed that they can deal with a difficult situation. Somebody who has had adversity, most likely at the group of 5 or lower power 5 level, and they've made the best of it. Somebody who's innovative because I think Nebraska, and I'm focused on football, of course, and Nebraska is really good at other sports. The baseball team,
right?
I don't know where they
Almost
advanced to
beat
this year. Okay, so they went to the regional finals, right?
Yeah.
They went to the super regionals.
Right.
Gotcha. And the wrestling teams have been good. They're good in another sport I'm not coming up with right now. Is it volleyball?
Yeah, it's volleyball, but they're like okay in basketball though.
Yeah.
Not
So
great.
we're concerned with football, and Nebraska's in a difficult place. Nebraska might be in the most difficult situation of any program in the country when it comes to these two things. On one hand, having these enormous expectations based on their past, and on the other hand, basically being further away from talent than any school in the country. Now, of course, there's talent around them, but I mean enough talent. They got to go to Texas. They've got to go to Florida. They're trying to bring in players from Georgia. So some type of innovative guy that can think of unique ways to kind of update the brand of the program, maintain the tradition and the values from the past, but kind of give it an updated look and feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if Nebraska hires a new athletic director that wants to go like back to Big 12, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like something might happen if a new athletic director for Nebraska could possibly go back to Big 12, but I mean, not my decision.
I don't know if this is me just being old and liking things the way that they were, or this is just me putting two and two together that Nebraska, when you say the name Nebraska, when you look at a map and see where Nebraska is located, when you have an understanding for the culture of Nebraska, it just connects to the Big 12. It just does.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why I said that's why I said there's a possibility it might go back to the Big 12, but I just don't know if it will happen in 2 years or 5 years. Probably 5 years, but I just want them to be competitive again and go back to Big 12. So
there's really not a great recruiting base in the Big Ten anywhere. If there is, the best ones in Ohio. If you're looking state by state by state, and Nebraska's got no connection to Ohio. And again, Ohio is not anywhere close to what it used to be in producing high school football talent, but it would be the best in the Big Ten. Maryland's decent, Pennsylvania's decent, but Nebraska joining the Big 12 gets that connection directly to Texas.
Right. And possibly Oklahoma too.
Sure. Oklahoma's not a great football playing state, but it's decent.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have right now. I just want to tell you that Brumus just stepped down. But yeah. All right, have a good day, Mark.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate the call, man. All right, let's line up the next one. Coming in here, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Yeah, hello. Who's on the line?
Oh, yeah, this is Ken again, Mr. Rogers.
Hey, Ken. What's going on?
Not too much. I want you to know I subscribe to your channel, of course, and we had such a great conversation the other night. I got a couple of things for you, and then I'm going to be gone. Number one is when you talk about Heisman Trophy snubs, this one that has burned me since the day it happened until this day, and that is when Billy Sims was at the University of Oklahoma. He should have won his second Heisman Trophy and would have been in the same category with Archie Griffin. And I believe Todd Blackledge won the Heisman that year. And I thought Billy Sims was the greatest player in college football when he played there. I thought he was a Heisman Trophy snub. He should have won him. He should have won his Heisman Trophy twice, in my opinion. Second thing is,
Ken. Excuse me, sir. Before you move on to your second comment, I just want to clarify something.
Okay.
So Billy Sims won the Heisman in '78. He would have won the Heisman in '79. That was Charles White of USC who won the Heisman that year.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for correcting me on that. But I'm just, I think, well, I think might have been the 7. I forgot, but the 2 years that I've seen him play with under Barry Switzer, I thought he was the best player in college football. That's what I thought. But he won the Heisman. He won one, but I thought he should have won two. But that's just me. But anyway, my second thing is current potential Hall of Fame coaches. Now, I got definitely Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Mac Brown, possibly Kirk Ferentz, although he has never won a national title. And I like Frank Solich. He had great season at Nebraska, even though they fired him. And he did a lot of things at Ohio. I could be wrong with those two, but in my opinion, I would put both of those coaches in the Hall of Fame. But I certainly know the three I named, Mac Brown, Dabo Swinney, and Nick Saban, I think they definitely will be in the Hall of Fame. But what is your take on that?
Okay, the guys that are a slam dunk to make the Hall of Fame are, of course, Nick Saban, Dabo, Mac Brown. They will be in the Hall of Fame. The guys that are working on Hall of Fame resumes, if you want to include some other people, would be, and I don't want anyone to jump on these comments because I'm talking about guys that are still a ways away, but they've won consistently. Right. Would be David Shaw's got some Hall of Fame credentials at this point. He's a ways away.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up Kirk Ferentz and Frank Solich.
Right.
Now, keep in mind that you have to have a 60% winning percentage to make the College Football Hall of Fame. I think that's a stupid rule.
Okay.
I think it's a dumb rule. We have Howard Schnellenberger, who should be in the College Football Hall of Fame, not have a winning percentage of 60%, basically because he built two programs. And when you build a program, you've got to slug it out with some bad football teams for a few years. But anyway, I know that I got to think, and I can look up the records, that Kirk Ferentz and Frank Solich are teetering on 60% winning percentage. To me, Ferentz, I would put Kirk Ferentz in the Hall of Fame before Frank Solich.
Okay. He's been there forever. And of course, Frank Solich is at two different colleges. One at Nebraska, now he's at Ohio, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. But he's been successful at both colleges, though. That's the reason why I consider him to be, a college Hall of Fame football coach, because he's had success at both colleges.
Yeah.
But again, you said the percentage, and I don't know the percentages, but I'm just saying that the success that he's had it at both colleges.
Well, I had predicted that these guys were going to be very close on the percentage, and I'm looking them up right now. So,
okay,
Kirk Ferentz is at 613. So he better not have a bad football season, because he's just above the line. And Frank Solich has a little bit more room at 631.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, and I don't even know anything about the percentages and everything you just brought up, but I just, from looking at their careers,
sure,
told me those guys, my opinion is worthy of a college football Hall of Fame. And so that's what I based that on their longevity and their careers, as college football coaches. And like you said, there are others like Schnellenberger and many others. And the man won a national title. Still not, probably won't get in the Hall of Fame, which I think is a shame. I think you should get extra points if you win a national championship, because it's very difficult to do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's a misguided rule. Somebody put that in play that wasn't thinking. Most of the time, it's better to have guidelines than to have rules. Meaning, let's look at the winning percentage. It obviously is very important, but let's understand it that different coaches arrive at different winning percentage based on much different circumstances. So it's got to be taken into context, not just this guy's got a 62% winning percentage, so he's got to be better than the guy that's got a 59% winning percentage. No, you got to take things into context and understand that Howard Schnellenberger showed up at Miami and the football program was almost disbanded, and he saved the football program. And within 4 years, they're winning a national championship. So that's him winning a national championship in 1983 at Miami after he arrived in 1979 and they were horrible is much different than a coach showing up at USC or Ohio State where they're a football factory and they win a national championship. That's a much greater accomplishment, what Howard Schnellenberger did. And then he went to Louisville, where they hadn't had a winning season in 12 or 13 years, and he got them to win 8-9 ball games and had a really stellar season in 1990 in which they beat Alabama in the Fiesta Bowl by 4 scores and finished 10-1-1 in the top 10 in the country when he took over a program that was winning 2 and 3 games a year. And then he goes to Florida Atlantic and he starts the football program. So, of course, when you start a football program, you're not going to be good the first few years.
No, of course not.
So all those things hurt his winning percentage.
Right. Now, I would have said Les Miles, but Les Miles got so much baggage.
Yep.
I can't put him in.
I thought the same thing.
He had success at Oklahoma State and at LSU. I would have put him in, but now with this baggage, no. I would not put Les Miles in because he's brought shame upon LSU, and I just wouldn't put him in, even though his record is outstanding, really, at both schools.
Do you know who has credentials very close to Kirk Ferentz? He's coached about 5 years less, but he's got a significantly higher winning percentage. Is Mike Gundy.
Oh, wow. But I don't consider Mike Gundy a Hall of Fame coach. He don't even come to mind at all.
He doesn't come to mind for me either, but he came to mind based on our conversation. Like if somebody asked me, is Mike Gundy a Hall of Fame coach? I would say, no. He goes 8-4 most seasons. That's what he does. Yeah. But he's got a better record than Kirk Ferentz.
Right. But like you said, based on the criteria and all that stuff, and you do all this analytic stuff, and I really don't care for that because I like this. What I see is what I base my opinion on. What I see, and it's a lot, like you say. But when you go through numbers and all this kind of stuff, it's just crazy. But one thing. Before I let you go. Jim Harbaugh, if he was at LSU, he would be fired. He'd have been fired years ago. But I guess other schools, accept mediocrity, whatever. But he would not be at LSU with his record. No way.
True.
No way. But they tolerate that crap. But not at LSU. Orgeron, say for instance, he went 5-5. He go 5-5 this year. He out the door. You see what I'm saying?
I will say,
other
Ken,
schools do not. Yeah.
I will say this. You're completely right. I completely agree. Les Miles, after 2011, had a very much like a Jim Harbaugh record. Now, he had 2 national championship appearances and 1 national championship win in his pocket. So that changes the complete evaluation. You know, you're going to keep a guy around longer if he starts losing 3 and 4 games a year, if he's made it to the big dance twice and he's won 1. So that buys him some time, and it should. But after 2011, his 8-4, 9-3 seasons are very much in line with what Jim Harbaugh has done at Michigan, because that's what Harbaugh has done at Michigan.
Right. And you see what happened. He's fired. That's why these schools, Michigan's supposed to be a elite program and all of this stuff with all this money and all this stuff, but they continue to accept a coach that's never going to beat Ohio State. Never. It's not going to happen. And I think they gave an extension to him or something. It's unbelievable. Are they satisfied with the 8-4, 9-3, whatever he does, and never beat Ohio State? To me, if I was a Michigan fan, I'd have billboards and all kinds of stuff. Fire Jim Harbaugh. But I guess their standards are different. If you come down to Alabama, LSU, one of them schools, and you have that kind of record, you're going to be out the door very quickly. But, you know, again, that's those schools. But in the SEC, and in particular in the West, you're going to have to show something, or you won't be at that university very long. And Gus Malzahn was, to me, a great offensive manager coach, but he's gone. So, I mean, I guess the standards are different.
John Cooper got fired at Ohio State 2 years after he went 11-1 and finished number 2 in the country and won the Sugar Bowl. 2 years later, he went 8-4 and he got fired.
Right. So that's my point. They shouldn't accept these at these big schools. You should not be accepting no 8-3, 8-4, 9-3 foolishness every year. No. I'll be the first one to tell you if Orgeron has a disappointing season this year, he ought to be fired. Period. But that's unacceptable at Alabama, LSU. It should be unacceptable at Michigan and other big schools. Should not be acceptable, but a lot of them still accept it. That man been there, 7 years now, Harbaugh?
Yes.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
6.
He never winning. I'm telling you right now, he ain't never winning no national championship at Michigan. He not. Not going to happen.
No, he's not.
It's just not. And people don't see that. That's just crazy to me. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Rogers, for taking my call once again. And y'all need to call him and subscribe to him because he is the voice of college football.
Thank you so much, Ken. Appreciate that. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
That's our guy, Ken, who just found us here recently. He's made a couple very knowledgeable, insightful calls to the channel. We always appreciate those. We appreciate the other kind as well, but it's nice to get some insightful calls to the channel. Phil is asking earlier about Mike Norvell. My evaluation of Mike Norvell is that the Florida State football team last year was the worst Florida State football team I've ever seen, but sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. So am I blaming Mike Norvell? Unlike some other folks that I have on my channel for our Florida State show, thinking of one guy in particular, I don't completely blame Mike Norvell for what happened last season. When you take over a train wreck, you have to clear out the damage, the debris. You have to you have to kind of start digging. And that's where he's at. Excuse me. And but he's responsible for the football team. And they were awful last year. They somehow just miraculously beat North Carolina. That was the most odd, curious outcome of the entire season. Other than that, Florida State played horrible football. They won 2 other games against Jacksonville State in a much less than dominant performance, and they beat Duke, who was trash. So Mike Norvell has very much an incomplete. Obviously, he's only coached 9 games. From what we've seen, I can't even say the trajectory's up or down, because let's say if this was somebody taking over a program that was fairly stable, okay, then I'd be able to say, well, the first season indicates that this person's taking it in a higher direction, or he didn't perform that well and they took a downturn. With Mike Norvell, I think he was just trying to get his footing. First of all, the program was in a bad place. He takes it over not during a normal year, but during a pandemic year. So he can't even coach the team during spring practice. He can't even relate to players. He can't meet with them face to face. He had none of that until the fall. And the coaching staff's trying to relate to players and trying to build relationships, and they're trying to change terminology and change an offense and change a defense. So Mike Norvell, he had 2 strikes against him. He had 2 strikes against him and a 98-mile-hour heater coming about chest high to start out his Florida State career. So I'm not condoning an awful 2020 season, but yeah, let's see what if we can see improvement on the field. Improvement on the field for Florida State this season could be 5-7 with that schedule that is by far, it's not even close, the most difficult schedule in the ACC, because they play in the tougher division and they play the 2 best teams in the other division, North Carolina and Miami, and they play 2 powers outside of the conference in Florida and Notre Dame. They could go 5-7 this year and be significantly better. And Florida State fans don't want to hear that. And people are generally, unless they really watch the team and watch the performance on the field, if they just look at the wins and the losses, which I understand that's all that matters ultimately. But when you're in a rebuilding phase, you have to take the wins and losses into context. There's a difference between losing 52-0 to Clemson versus losing 34-17. They go out there and they play competitive against a Clemson, let's say, and it's a 34-17 game. There are no moral victories, but at the place where Florida State currently is, that's a good sign. If they play Notre Dame on opening night and they lose 45-10 and the game's 28-0 in the first quarter, that is different than them playing a competitive 31-20 game where it's still in doubt in the fourth quarter. They're playing from behind all night, but they're within a score and they lose 31-20. It's just different. Daniel is predicting that JTT is going to stay home and go to Washington. And we've got Christopher talking about, and others about Greg Schiano doing a fine job at Rutgers. He won there the first time. Look at Rutgers football before he showed up. And did he win big there? No, but considering Rutgers, 7-5s, 8-4s, going to bowl games every year, it's basically what he did. And Rutgers had lost 21 consecutive Big Ten games. And most of those were, Rutgers was so bad that they had games like they did against Iowa a couple of years ago, where they had, get this, how is this even possible? They had negative yards passing. Like they went 2 for 12 or 2 for 14 passing, and both of them were for negative yardage. Like the receiver, like on a bubble screen, got thrown down for negative yardage. They had negative yardage passing in a game against Iowa in which they got shut out. They lost to Michigan. Again, Michigan, not a great team, but a good team at the time. What was that, 2018? 76-0. And if you're a numbers guy that Ken just called up, he said he's not a numbers guy, could care less about numbers. But if you are a numbers guy, look up the box scores to Rutgers football. If you want to see just really odd looking box scores, you're going to see quarterbacks who went, 8 for 23 for 94 yards and 3 interceptions, and running backs who ran for 2.1 yards per carry. And you're going to see teams that got out first downed 32-9 and, gave up 680 yards of offense and only had 130. Rutgers was atrocious. They were worse than Kansas, much worse than Kansas. I think Kansas beat Rutgers by like 30 points a couple of years ago. Rutgers for the last 3 to 4 seasons has been the worst program. Schiano shows up. He smartly goes in the transfer portal, doesn't pick up superstars, but picks up guys that can fill roles on his team from other Big Ten teams. And he goes 3-5. They beat Michigan State. They beat Illinois and Purdue. And they played well. They played close the other games. They lost to Michigan in overtime. Breaking news coming in. Courtesy Mark East out in the field says 5-star talent George has 1 year of eligibility left with the Florida Gators. Jason says Nebraska has very little juice right now. I know the Big Ten money is huge for them, but they really belong in the Big 12. And I, of course, agree with that, as I just stated. Culturally and historically, they belong in the Big 12. It's tough to debate that. That doesn't mean that they can't be successful in the Big 10. They didn't start out unsuccessfully in the Big Ten. They didn't win championships, but they made a Big Ten championship game. And under Bo Pelini and Mike Riley's first couple of years, they were winning 9 games in the Big Ten. So it's not like they walked into the Big Ten and they just started to get annihilated. They can succeed in the Big Ten, but it's a better fit from a football standpoint. Maybe not on the financial ledger or in other sports or anything else. I only speak to the football. Better in the Big 12 for Nebraska. We got Sam on the line asking, has Mark given his take on the possible 12-team playoff format? Sam, please look up the video. I don't want to bore everyone here who listens to me on a fairly regular basis. So just check out, all you have to do is go to the front page of the channel right here. And there's a little search bar and just put in 12-team playoff. and I'm sure you will find my analysis. I gave it many times on live streams and call-in shows, but also I just posted a video. You'll see me do this. You'll see this on the thumbnail. I'm doing one of these deals, and I got the good and I got the bad, and I laid it all out there for you. Gave you my take on the playoff. I believe we've got a call coming in from a regular, DeAndre, on the line. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mark? How your day going off, first off? How your day going, Mark?
I'm good.
You hear me?
Yeah, I got you. How are you doing?
Okay. I am excellent. So I was chilling and I was doing some research. So me and you have talked about what a blue blood is. You know, in college football. So I came across a couple of articles, and one was from the, I guess, Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
From the Hall of Fame. I got cut off there for a second.
We're starting to lose you, DeAndre.
Hello?
Yes.
Mark, you there?
We got you.
Okay. So one was, yeah, it kept cutting off on me. But one was from the Hall of Fame or whatever. So they were talking about what is a blue blood, you know, and you know Ohio State, Michigan, and USC was in there, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, the usual suspects. So they were saying, how do you define a blue blood in today's time period? And in the article, the guy was saying it's hard. Like the reason why Michigan doesn't get a lot of respect right now for being a blue blood was because a lot of their wins were in the 1800s. Like I can't remember when the era was. I'm gonna send you the article on Twitter and you can look at it. And it was saying that Michigan, a lot of their wins was before segregation and before the what's called it. So they only gave them like 10%. Like national championships was 20%. 20% was I can't remember. I wish I had the article in front of me. Then like 30% was games won post segregation. So they were just saying, you know, what a blue blood is different than now. Now they didn't count Clemson as a blue blood. They counted, like I said, the original team. So what was your definition of a blue blood?
Okay. I am not saying my definition is the definition or that I've got a handle on this completely, but this is the way I see it, is that there's a difference between being a blue blood and being elite. That if you are not a blue blood now, you can never be a blue blood. It has to do with origin. It has to do with the beginning of college football or near the beginning of college football, where Clemson can be elite or Illinois could come out of nowhere and be elite. If Illinois won 5 of the next 10 national championships, they would clearly be elite, but they will never be a blue blood because a blue blood goes back to the origin. It's a royal term. You know, blue bloods had royal blood running through their veins, so they couldn't do anything about it. They didn't do anything to earn it, really. They just started out that way. And so if you really want to take that definition to the nth degree, I don't even think Ohio State would be a blue blood. But, you know, it's
an article that I'm talking about, they said the reason why Ohio State would be considered a blue blood, and because of the amount of NFL play, it was just a formula that they went by. And if you Google it, you'll find it. And everybody that had it had these different formulas. They always consider Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas, and in the article they were saying it's hard to even count Texas as a blue blood because they only have 4 national championships. But national championships and the amount of people that you put into the NFL went into the consideration of what a blue blood was. It was like a whole bunch of factors, but Michigan was being punished because most of their success, a lot of their success became before the end of segregation, and also a lot of their wins were before, not all of them were college football teams they were playing. Like they would have been playing a random team and they'll count the win.
Well,
like it could have been a bunch of factory workers.
Well, I understand that point that Michigan has not won a national championship since 1997 and only one since 1948. I get that. But if you look at Michigan's winning percentage, I guarantee that Michigan had a near top 5 winning percentage in the country in the 70s and a top 10 definitely in the 80s and 90s.
Right. Okay.
So they were winning at a high rate.
Right. Michigan was definitely where it was at in the 70s and 80s. I mean, their games from Notre Dame was classic, and I couldn't wait. That seemed like that was always the first game of the year. Notre Dame and Michigan. Then the games with Colorado and Florida State, and they played a lot of heavyweight, especially in Ann Arbor. I don't remember them traveling north. They played Washington a lot back in the 90s and won those games. So, I agree with you. I just came across the article, and I wish I was better prepared. I didn't know you was going to have a call-in show because I wanted to present it to you.
Here's Michigan's record.
Present it to you.
In the 70s, they went 9-1,
Mm-hmm.
11-1, went to the Rose Bowl, 10-1, 10-0-1, 10-1, 8-2-2 went to the Orange Bowl, 10-2 went to the Rose Bowl, 10-2 went to the Rose Bowl, 10-2 went to the Rose Bowl, 8-4 went to the Gator Bowl. That's their 1970s.
Okay. And like I said, it was just a question. I want to be better prepared. Like I said, I'm going to send you the article on Twitter to the instant message on there. Maybe we get a better understanding of what I was talking about. But
DeAndre, time,
don't get me wrong. Michigan.
I was just going to say, every time you get me on the phone, you get my wheels spinning about a bunch of videos I want to produce, because I want to come up with my own formula, and I'll do some type of top 10 or top 25 all-time rankings the way I see it.
Yeah, because one ranking went into they concluded they put in there I think Clemson was 25, but they put Grambling State in there. They put Mount Union. What's the other Division III school up there? Let's start with a W.
Baldwin Wallace?
It's up in Minnesota. There was a blue. They would consider them the modern definition of a blue blood state. Yeah, and who else was in there? Yeah, and like I said, the usual suspects. And but they were kind of hard on Texas too. Texas and Michigan the article was hard on both of them because they said in 1970, before Vince Young got there, they're that was pretty much the only win of a national championship was they get that Vince Young won it. And so I think that was 35 years between national championships. I mean, we know they were good in 82 and 83 because we had that debate all the time. So I would just wonder, and have you ever came across the article and seen it? I would just wonder, because if we talk to people that play basketball, some of them won't say Duke is a blue blood, because it wasn't one of the original good football teams back in the day. Basketball teams, you had Carolina, Kansas, UCLA, and other schools, and they also asked in an article. I'm trying to look it up on my phone right now. They said, so would you consider Princeton and Yale a blue blood? Minnesota, they have so many national championships and stuff like that.
I'll state it more this
Minnesota
way.
has what?
elite programs all time historically. So that means that from the beginning until now, that overall that I would rate them historically elite. My list is Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, USC. And then I give a category for being right on the cusp of that to Penn State and Nebraska.
Right.
Now, if we're going to go the last 50 years, then you bring in Miami and Florida State and probably Florida, and then you start to move Clemson into that category here real soon as well.
Yeah, it won't come up for me, but I know I had the article. But yeah, they were saying that because like I even questioned like, and I know Tennessee was the only one competing with Alabama for a long time in the SEC, and I even questioned that. But a lot of the points that the article was making, you got to cut it off at segregation because you don't know how good these schools were. They were to match up against the HBCUs.
Sure.
I'm talking about the Southern teams. Yeah, and so they were like, you know, and they refused. Like Pitt came down and played in the Cotton Bowl, but they had African American players that couldn't play. So I think they lost that particular game. Or like another thing they said, the bias that you got to look at, Jim Brown and Paul Horner.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul Horner had 3 touchdown passes and 13 interceptions.
Yeah,
but they gave him the Heisman.
That's the most ridiculous Heisman vote I've ever seen. That would be if I cut a Heisman snub video, and that's another thing that's on my list that I need to get to. That would be the first one that I would address right there.
Yeah. So and that's what the article was talking about. You know, the inconsistency of how we judge who's good and who's bad and what's a blue blood and what's not. And like I said, they were like, they brought it up, you know, you count Yale and Harvard and they won all these national championships or claimed all the national. I think Pitt claims 9 national championships or something like that.
Yeah.
But all of them before the AP poll. Yeah. So they were like, how do you clarify what a blue blood is and stuff like that. But hopefully I'll send you the link to the article sometime tonight and let you know.
Now I'm gonna further pile on to the argument against Paul Horning, but I'm also going to defend him. So I'm going to pile on a little bit more, but I'm going to defend him. Yeah, you're right. I had these numbers in my head as well, but I just looked them up as well. 3 touchdowns, 13 interceptions as a passer, which people have to understand that's awful. Yes, but it's not as awful in 1956 as it is now. It's not the same. And completing 53% of your passes in 1956 is not like completing 53% now. But we also have to understand that he played defensive back and intercepted passes. I can't find the total here, but he did intercept passes as a defensive back. He was their kick returner, punt returner, and he kicked extra points and field goals.
Right.
So I will give him that much. You know, he had a season in the NFL where he hit 12 of 38 field goals. He was the Green Bay Packers field goal kicker, and he missed 26 out of 38 field goals. He attempted more field goals. I was telling this, I've got a buddy that's a Packers fan, and we just launched a Pro Football History channel. You should check it out. I know you like the NFL. And we just have these discussions. And I said, Vince Lombardi is supposed to be the greatest coach in NFL history, and he let Paul Horning attempt the most field goals in the league, and he missed 26 out of 38. Now, that's not being real smart. But, yeah, things were just different. But Jim Brown, I don't think Jim Brown had, like, some crazy, incredible season because they only played 9 games back then, for one thing. I think he had like 900 and some
Well,
yards rushing.
I did.
But he did.
Well,
He did
no,
have
he
a better
got over
season. He
1,000
did have a better
over 8
season.
games. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to debate that. He
Yeah.
did have a better
No.
season and should have won the Heisman Trophy, or maybe somebody else should have won it. I'm going to have to really. But yeah, Jim Brown's the guy that comes to mind. He ran. That's the wrong Jim Brown. There's a bunch of Jim Browns here. I'm going to have to sort through to find the right one. I think he ran for like 950. And the other thing was Paul Horning's team was awful.
Right.
They went 2-8. Can you imagine somebody
Right.
winning the Heisman now that their team goes like 3-9? So yeah.
Well, the worst one I ever seen. I know he didn't win the Heisman, but I could never understand why Jay Barker, when he was at Alabama, was in the Heisman conversation. I'm like, why is he in the Heisman conversation? I mean, he's terrible. I don't know if you remember that. But I remember he was in the Heisman conversation.
He won a national championship. But yeah, Jay Barker was not a great quarterback. He was good enough to make the Green Bay Packers roster for a couple of years. Jim Brown came just shy of 1,000 yards, 986 in 8 games, 6.2 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns.
Okay. Well, this is what I was looking at. This is one of the articles. They said generation 30 years of recent success, national championships, conference championships, 10-win seasons, All-American players in the NFL, and Heisman Trophy win. That was the criteria. You had USC. You had, of course, Oklahoma, which makes perfect sense. Ohio State.
So DeAndre,
Alabama,
they're just saying who the Blue Bloods are. They're not saying this program is number 1, they're number 2, they're number 3.
Right. Ohio State. Well, they got Ohio State ranked behind those 3.
Oh, so they do
Which
have
I can
them ranked.
understand, but right. Notre Dame is behind Ohio State. They're number 5. And well, this depends on what you look at. It feels like it skips around. Florida's in there. And Florida State's in there. So I guess it just depends on how you look at it. But yeah,
I'm going
I was just wondering what you thought about it.
I'm going to have to roll up my sleeves and come up with my own formula, and I'll release my video on the all-time programs and try to rank them. That may take some time.
Well, when I was reading the articles, like I said, I didn't know you had a call-in show. I wish I had my notes better prepared to ask you those questions. But that biggest knock was Michigan and Texas. They never knocked Ohio State because it was like Michigan, a lot of their success, like they were saying in the 1800s, the late 1800s, like some teams played 4 games and some teams played less games. And some teams, like, I think one year they played the School of Cardiology in Chicago. It's like, who? It was like Southern State University here where I'm at. They used to play the Fort Bragg Dragons.
Sure.
And everybody like, well, who's the Fort Bragg Dragons? This is the biggest military base in the world where I stay at. And the Fort Bragg Dragons were just a bunch of military guys playing a bunch of college kids. And if you go through Fayetteville State history, they play that game a whole lot. Now, the Fayetteville Dragons don't play nobody else but them. So it's like, they beat these military guys every time they play them. But, it was probably just fun for the military soldiers to go out there because, you ain't going to have no military soldiers that are 250-pound plus offensive, defensive linemen. They might be just as good a shape, but, and I guess that's what the article was talking about. But also in the 1800s, you ain't going to have 300-pound offensive linemen like you did back in the day. So it was just something fun to look at, and I just want to get your opinion. But, hey, I can't wait to hear I can't wait till you come up with your list. I know this. I'm probably the only person on the internet that's interested in stuff like that and want to hear your opinion. But yeah, I think it's great, and people should follow up, especially when this dead period. You don't really got much going on. I mean, how much recruitment can you talk? These guys really ain't signing right now. So how much recruitment can you talk? I think it's something that all of us should give a chance to. Go look at the history and where it comes from. Because I know a lot of people. I forgot the gentleman that was the Florida State podcast. I ain't seen him in a while, but the black guy that played there.
James
I
Coleman.
can't remember his name. James Coleman. But he even brings up the point, like, how can you start counting it? Like, I don't count before 1970 because it was so unequal. We don't really know how good these teams were in the South. And, even up north, I mean, they got the best teams. And the best teams, I know Alabama was really good, but Southern Cal and the Big Ten schools pretty much ran college football at that time. Let me ask you this, I'll let you go. Is it my imagination, did I see that Bo and Woody Hayes did not have winning records in the Rose Bowl? Is that true?
Bo definitely did not. Bo went, excuse me, off the top of my head, Bo won the 1980 Rose Bowl, and he won his second to last Rose Bowl game in 1988. I think he went 2-9, 2-8, or 2-9. And
right.
Woody was closer to 500. He might have had a losing record because he lost. I'd have to kind of go year by year through my head. But I think Woody was something like 5-6 in the Rose Bowl.
A lot of losses to Southern Cal won it.
Yes.
I think UCLA might have got it 1 year. Yeah.
Actually, yes. Woody would have won his last national championship in 1975. He had the number one team in the country, 11-0. And ironically, they beat UCLA by 3 touchdowns in the regular season. And then UCLA beat them in the Rose Bowl as a huge underdog in the 75-76 Rose Bowl.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that was, who the coach was Dick Vermeil for UCLA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, That was his last game at UCLA before he took the Philadelphia Eagles job. So no wonder Woody Hayes lost the Rose Bowl. He was facing a really good NFL coach who would go on to win, of course, the Super Bowl with the St. Louis Rams and play in a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles just a couple of years after that when they lost to the Raiders.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know Dick Vermeil was the coach.
This is the kind of stuff I'm good for, DeAndre. I could probably do a better call-in show if we were talking about like 1970s and 80s football.
Man, I'll sit there and talk to you all day about it because I love it. I know you say it doesn't on sale, but I think these people make how much can you talk about what somebody did last year, what you expect out of this person without them actually playing? Like in all season, these people should look up what we be talking about sometimes, and they probably have more engaging conversations. I don't get it. I mean, I saw something weird the other day. Southern Cal used to play a lot of South teams like Georgia Tech, South Carolina. Georgia Tech had a series like in the 60s or 70s for a long period of time. Like, why? It's like, why would they come out here and play Georgia Tech? And stuff like that. That's just amazing, man. They just play South Carolina and Clemson too. I was like, why they come down to the South? I could see playing Alabama, but Georgia Tech. So,
when I told you, DeAndre, that Woody Hayes was 5-6, possibly in the Rose Bowl, that came to mind. What was stuck in my head, I actually just looked it up. Woody Hayes was 5-6 in bowl games. He was 4-4 in the Rose Bowl.
Oh wow!
And see, they had a really stupid rule back then that if you went to the Rose Bowl one year, you could not go the next year. And so that happened to Ohio State a number of times where they won the Big Ten the next year and they couldn't go to the Rose Bowl. That's like there was an argument the other night, and people were asking me questions about 1966. Notre Dame and Michigan State tied, and they finished 1-2 in the poll, and they both went 10-0-1, and they tied when they played, and Michigan State didn't go to the Rose Bowl. Even though they won the Big Ten, they were undefeated. Right. They didn't go to the Rose Bowl because they went to the Rose Bowl the year before. That was dumb.
Oh, yeah. And then I heard y'all talk about how many bowls there are now and how they didn't get rid of some of them. I totally agree. I mean, I know everybody's so excited about the 12-team playoffs and, you know, which still don't make a lot of sense to me. But I wish they would play I wish there was a better way to use a bowl. I enjoy watching the Mexico Bowl sometimes. And it was like, yo, if you want to bet on a game for the over, the Mexico Bowl was where it was at.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they're going to go by the wayside. But, hey, man, you know, the bowls are going to be gone pretty soon. The Bahama Bowl, that was another one that, you know, you tuned in to watch because you knew it was going to be a high-scoring game. And some of the bowls are going to be gone pretty soon, and we're not going to be able to enjoy them. But, I mean, I hear a lot of people say they like this idea of a 12-team playoff. But I know you don't like buys, so I'm sure you're saying it should be 16. But, I know, it is what it is, you know, because somebody's going to get screwed. I think if they're going to do this, I think that you got to be a conference winner to get in there. And I know people are going to say, well, what happened if you have a 6? I think, who was Texas beat that year, though, like 5-7? And I think it was Colorado. So you're saying a 5-7 Colorado team should be in? I said no, but I think that, you know, you should look at just having conference champions in there. Because that's what they do in college basketball. Back in the day when it was just 12 teams, I mean, back when UCLA played, was winning everything, they only had conference champions in there. That's what I think they should go back to, but I know they're not. I mean, I know it was a money grab, and you want more SEC teams or teams from the South in there, and big school teams like Michigan and Ohio State, and you want those teams in there. That's why you making it bigger for those teams to get in Texas. Because I saw a stat that said if you don't have a certain percentage of blue chippers, you're not going to win a national championship. And they will break it down how Alabama had 84, Georgia had 80, and Clemson had 67% blue chippers. And they said those are usually the main suspects. Ohio State, they have a high amount of blue chippers. So, you know, so maybe there is only 12 teams that can win it. I don't know. But I'll let somebody else talk for it, man. Thank you. And I'll get that article to you. And y'all give Mark some money because he does an excellent job. And I say that every time. So, y'all have a great night.
Yes, you do, DeAndre, and I appreciate it. You have a good night.
You too.
Our man DeAndre on the line, breaking down college football history for us through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so forth. All right. Want to remind everyone, shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section of the videos, please. It helps us build the channel. Also, you can contribute by going to Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV right there. So Mike 3883 had asked about a countdown clock, and we had this given to us a few years ago by, I believe, Justin Firm. I believe he was so kind to do that. And, you know, I forgot I had this set the other day. I was going to use it, and I didn't have the instructions on how to set the time, and I kept like putting the time in, but it wouldn't start. So there's only like one button on the whole thing. It's not the most complicated thing in the world. And I could not figure out how to get the thing cranked up. All you have to do is plug it in, obviously, to get the lights on there. But I could set the time. Like I could go to each category and put a number in there, but I couldn't get it to start. So we'll have to figure that out. Because, yeah, the countdown clock was given to us, donated, and it's a cool thing to have. All right, everyone. Again, we'll be here as we always are every day. Please lock in on the content, and please consider contributing in a number of ways, whether that be financially or sharing the videos out on social media. And, of course, subscribe right here and to the team channels. Oregon's coming up on 1,000. Get us to 1,000 on the Oregon channel. That would be phenomenal. And be looking out for roster breakdowns. We're going to break down the rosters. We have already recorded Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia, with more to come. Thank you so much. Who is that coming in with a super chat? Thank you so much for that, Tim. Appreciate that so much. Thank you so much for that contribution. Much appreciated. And it is a whole lot of fun, and that's why we do it. It is a grind, but it's a labor of love, and it's what I've chosen to do. So it is all possible because of you. And also keep in mind that if you are able to sponsor the show, meaning you've got a business where you can sponsor the channel or a specific team, please keep that in mind. Or if you know of somebody who's in that position that could benefit from sponsoring us, please hit me up at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. All right, folks. We will see you soon. I don't know when the next live is going to be because I don't have anything scheduled over the weekend, but we will be live a number of times on Monday. So be looking out for those notifications. We will be live on Monday with Nebraska, Ohio State, and Miami for sure, and maybe more on Monday, right here at the Voice of College Football. See you next time.